2025, day 8. All right, so of course, as you should be able to tell, yes, this is a completely different school from the last school that I went live from. Um, Again, welcome to VEDA Day 8 video every day of August. So I'm here. The last time I came at y'all from a school, I was setting up. Now I'm cleaning up. So we just made a mess. Not a giant mess, but a mess. Okay. Actually, let me make sure that my phone is not gonna. Uh-oh. Oops, we may get interrupted by buzzing and things, y'all. Such is life. So I am here. Today is April 8th, 2025. I'm here at one of my after school locations, and this is what it is to now clean up the marshmallow spaghetti structure project. So let's do a couple of follow-up pieces from that. Number one, if you do this activity, remember yesterday I was telling you one of the things about the activity that I like is that it's one of the things that, because of the relatively and cheap and expensive are relative for people, and so I don't want to assume what your situation is, but marshmallow and dried spaghetti are typically accessible for folks, and you're typically able to get a lot of them. Okay. And so, like I said, one of the things that I like about it is that it tends to be one of the things that kids can make and then take home, because that's a very common question. Almost every time I walk into the room, my students, especially the little ones, especially the pre-K kids, they will ask, can I take it home? Because they want to show their families what they've made, especially if they're in a school environment that really encourages a home school connection, which, by the way, is intentional. And if we want to talk about tips, one of the tips, as far as when you're looking at a new school for your child, you can have a conversation that's a question that you can ask. Remember, I was talking to y'all about questions that you can ask concerning a STEM or STEAM program to kind of assess whether or not it really is a STEM or STEAM program. I was saying, hey, ask them the amount of minutes and or types of activities, not necessarily the curriculum. The curriculum that they're using is not necessarily what you want to know. You want to know how much time they get. So when it comes to the school home connection, you can ask kind of like, are there parent engagement events? Are there events that parents are expected to be at? And on the other side of things, for those of us running program, we can be intentional about, like, for example, for my summer program, I'm very intentional about the process. Several years ago, I started making a point. I mean, it's been several years, because my program is relatively on the small. And again, remember, I told you everything is relative. Okay, so small to me might not be what small to you is, but I suspect when I say small, when it comes to summer program, you would agree that our program is small in comparison to some of the other sizes of programs that are here in New York City. But that being said, that's neither here nor there. But when you're talking about doing parent engagement, so from the program director's aspect of it or the administrator's aspect of it, like I said, I do an email, right? Like, I make sure that I email families at least once a week. They get a detailed schedule so that they can then engage their young people. Actually, it's really twice a week, because I send on Saturday or Sunday, I say, hey, this is what the week is going to look like. Or rather, I schedule it for Saturday or Sunday. I typically write it on either Friday or Sunday, and then I have it scheduled to send out to the parents. Go Google and all the types of email things that will let you schedule things. And I send it out to the families, and I say, hey, this is what we're doing this week. Make sure that your child knows that this is the theme. And then, of course, I reinforce the theme. And then at pickup, if I've noticed that a child, again, this is parent engagement techniques and tips from the administrator, from the educator's end of things. Okay. So I then at pickup will say, oh, remember this on the schedule? So ask them about this. And instead of saying, encouraging parents to say, what did you do today? I will say, your child specifically liked, again, my program is relatively small, so I can do this. Everybody might not be able to do it on this granular of a level, but you can, if you send out a schedule, you can have parents then ask about at least the name of the activity. And especially when it comes to STEM, child-centered STEM activities, the names may be kooky. Like, for example, elephant toothpaste. Actually, this particular site happens to like, the kids tend to like elephant toothpaste. And this time last year, actually really like around May, we were finishing out our run of the curriculum and elephant toothpaste outdoors because they have a little play kind of area and we do several activities outdoors. And so the families were asking, what is that? And so that was a great homeschool connection and to be able to then communicate. So I did the activity on my YouTube channel and on the various socials so that families could see it. I was like, hey, I told one of the teachers, again, that's program to school connection that I'm very big on. You see all of it is connection, community. Remember, camp, classes, community, and consulting. And so that's a real thing for us. All 4 of those C's are hit intentionally. It's all about intention. It's on purpose. I send out the schedule, then I help people follow up. I say, this is the activity that was done. And then on a smaller, granular level, again, just for clarification, what do I do with my specific class that I have in the summer? Because though I have hundreds of students throughout the year, during the summer, it's a lot smaller group of kids. So I can say, oh, S particularly liked this part of the art project. Ask them this. Or S seemed to notice this learning, this particular part of the light bulb. Or even if, say, it's a Friday and they're getting ready to go home and I know that maybe they might have those materials at home, because again, I'm really close to my families, especially in the summer, appropriately so, to say, hey, so you could actually try this at home. Similar to what I did yesterday. And I had, shout out to Miss Lucy, you know who you are. I got to touch base with her today. If you end up watching this, thank you for watching yet another video. I'm super thankful I got to touch base with her. She's like, oh, I watched your videos and all that type of stuff. And then I was able to then give her an extension to the activity that I told y'all about yesterday for an older child. All right. So yeah, I mean, these are the things, homeschool, community, home organization, school to organization, school to partner, vendor, all that type of stuff. These connections that we have come not just automatically, they come with intention. So let's call that kind of the point of today's video. When you set intention, y'all know how, or rather folks who've been following me for a while know that I kind of have a 3-pronged thing, right? So intention, plan, and then execute. And that intention step is extremely imperative. So if one of my intentions is to make sure that folks feel very empowered, feel like I'm approachable, feel like there's access to the knowledge that I have, and feel like they're able to not only access it, but then turnkey it for their young person, that comes from me setting the intention. I have to do that on purpose, and I need to be out and about physically in Harlem, but also here online, because if I'm telling you that I want to be accessible, but you don't see me online for like, I don't know how many months or whatever, how are you supposed to know what we're up to in the community? And how are you also supposed to know how to differentiate, change activities for the various age groups? Because maybe your kids, yesterday when I do my Monday videos, I typically am coming from my center where I have 2-year-olds. So I have a tendency to have them on my mind. Later in the week, I have older children. So then I have them on my mind, and then I'm able to communicate to you, this is what you need to do with this group of kids with the activity. So that's all the various tips, y'all. Hopefully I'm dropping nuggets that are useful to you. The next tip when you're talking about doing this activity en masse, okay? So like I said, it's one of the activities that I feel is relatively accessible when it comes to materials in particular. I've been teaching STEAM for some time now. Okay, well over a decade and a half. Okay, and materials management is one of the big things. Making sure you have enough of everything. So in particular, the plates, it almost seemed like we were going to run out of the plates when I got to my second class, because I have 2 classes in this particular location now, which is super fantastic. Shout out again, that's community engagement. They needed somebody to do something else, but that's regular intention, because I'm already here and they know that I'm going to come correct. And that's not tooting my own horn. That's really just being intentional and being focused. And I thank y'all for that, because you know who I'm talking to. For trusting me with a second class. They knew that they could do that. They could trust me. They were like, hey, look, something happened. Can you come do some stuff with our, another group of kids? I said, yes, sure. I'm already there. Let's try to make it on one of the days I'm already there instead of adding a day. So we worked together very quickly and turnkeyed and got it there. But that being said, I ended up thinking I was going to run out of plates. So materials management, make sure you have enough materials for all the students that might come, because sometimes you get extra kids that might come, especially if you're doing stuff during after school. After school, if you're a push-in after school instructor or a fellow vendor, now I'm talking fellow vendors, just be ready, because sometimes after schools need to move kids around, not because anything negative has happened, but just life. So I try to be welcoming. I was telling the staff here, I was like, yeah, sure, so can come in the room. They needed to move some older kids into the younger kid group for a second. I was like, hey, look, actually, they can come do the activity. And so, yeah, so again, materials, and then also cleanup. So how does that school or location manage the end? I know that most likely someone will come in and sweep, but that doesn't mean I need to leave it messy. That's not what we do. Okay. Also, now I picked up a certain amount of the materials last week on Friday at a grocery store, because again, like I said, I'm doing not on Friday, actually Thursday. A plan, intention, plan, execute. So last Thursday, I was thinking about what am I going to do this week with my students. I've been in communication. I have a site that I'll be at tomorrow, where there are materials that are there on site that they offered for me to use, but they're in a specific location that I don't have access to. So I've been in respectful, hopefully the person thinks I'm being respectful, communication with one of the individuals that I interact with a lot. They're a great person, like awesome. We're both on the same chill. Well, the person's a bit more chill than I am, which is good. Because sometimes in class I'm like, guys, focus. But yeah, so communicating and say, hey, we need such and such materials. Like if I don't communicate, if the school is offering something to me, but I'm not saying what I need, then I'm not being fair to them. I don't get to now complain later. No, I have to communicate now and say, hey, where's this item? Let's try to use this type of thing. This week at most of my locations, we're doing a very, very hands-on thing. Almost no lab reports for anybody, just to give the kids a break, but their minds are still going to be processing. This spaghetti marshmallow situation is very engineering heavy. And I'm telling you, I saw some kindergartners today who were the business. They did a great job with that project. I gave them, you got to give the right instructions, set them up, continue to encourage them. And then of course we do affirmations throughout the thing. I'm an engineer, I'm a scientist. That's another tip that I would give you, is that then instead of talking about necessarily the concept or the learning, just identifying as a scientist, identifying as an engineer, saying those things early on in life have really strong positive impacts. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and log out because I see tons of spaghetti pieces on this floor. And like I said, I work well with the folks here, and so I want to make sure that I'm very respectful and I don't leave this particular educator's classroom a hot mess. And so I'm going to clean up the big pieces and then keep it moving and head actually to go to another grocery store to grab the next batch of marshmallows and spaghetti, because remember, we want the marshmallows to be fresh. The spaghetti, it doesn't have to be fresh, it just has to still be dry, but the marshmallows do need to be fresh. I'm telling y'all now, do not try to use frozen ones from whatever holiday dish that maybe you put them in. They need to be fresh from the store, and you need to kind of check them in the bag. Obviously, you can't open up the bag in the store, but you should be able to shake the bag and the marshmallows move around. That's another tip. That's actually my final tip for today. How do I know that they're fresh enough, and how do I know that they're going to be appropriate for this particular activity? If they are moving around and instead of sticking together, because though you're going to use that as your glue, as your connector, as your brick kind of, you don't want them already sticking together, because then the children don't get to place them wherever they want, and it becomes harder for them to manipulate them because they're already sticky. We don't want that. All right, so it's been real. It's been fun. Thank you for watching VEDA Day 8. And I know that I've been shaking the camera, but I really appreciate y'all for following and watching and supporting the work that we're doing here at Ms. Steph Science Club. And have an absolutely wonderful day.